Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is pushing the diplomatic envelope. On June 4th, he sent a direct letter to Vladimir Putin proposing face-to-face negotiations in a neutral third country, a full ceasefire during talks, and an all-for-all prisoner exchange. This is an update on the peace track. Zelensky isn't just repeating old calls. He tied the proposal to new pressures on Russia, including recent Ukrainian drone strikes deep into Russian territory, domestic fuel shortages, inflation, and Moscow's increasing reliance on China and North Korea. He suggested Switzerland, Turkey, or Arab states as potential venues, and emphasized that Europe and the US should act as guarantors for any post-conflict security framework. The message is clear. Ukraine will negotiate from strength and expects Russia to respond accordingly. Putin responded with public posture and subtle concessions. At the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, he maintained a hardline stance, claiming daily Russian advances and reiterating willingness to honor compromise proposals from Anchorage with Trump if Ukraine reciprocates. He also admitted the air defense system needs reinforcement after Ukrainian drones penetrated St. Petersburg's airspace, marking a strategic vulnerability at the heart of Russia's showcase city. While Moscow continues to project confidence, these incidents underscore a growing gap between Russia's projected narrative and operational realities. In Washington, Congress flexed its support for Ukraine. The U.S. House passed the Ukraine Support Act 226-195, with 18 Republicans breaking with party leadership to join Democrats. The legislation provides over $1 billion in security and reconstruction aid, up to $8 billion in defense loans, and sanctions on Russian financial institutions, energy, and mining sectors. This development reinforces the message that Ukraine remains a bipartisan priority in Congress, even as Senate approval remains uncertain and a Trump veto is likely. Lawmakers framed the vote as a way to ensure Ukraine negotiates from strength, demonstrating that congressional appetite for supporting Kyiv is robust, despite partisan disagreements. Europe is providing incremental strategic openings. Hungary lifted its long-standing block on formal EU accession talks for Ukraine after Kyiv agreed to expand protections for ethnic Hungarians. While the new Hungarian prime minister set a 10 to 15-year accession horizon and required a referendum, this shift creates a window for Ukraine to advance European integration. NATO membership is still politically blocked, so the EU path becomes a critical long-term anchor. Russia's domestic economic and strategic pressures are mounting. Officials at SPIEF presented a narrative of growth, stable incomes, and low unemployment, but closer examination shows a war economy under stress. Labor shortages are driving wage inflation, fuel sales are restricted in multiple regions, sovereign reserves are declining, and budget deficits are ballooning. Ukrainian strikes against refineries, fuel depots, and critical infrastructure have compounded these pressures, forcing Moscow to respond with resource-intensive defensive measures. Ukraine's long-range strike campaign continues to stress Russian logistics and energy. Recent strikes hit the Ryazan propellant plant, Tambov's Progress plant, the St. Petersburg oil terminal, and the Saratov refinery. In occupied regions, Ukraine targeted fuel and lubricant storage, command posts, ammunition depots, and a patrol ship near the Kerch Peninsula. These operations are strategically significant, pressuring Moscow's operational tempo and energy resilience rather than just creating spectacular explosions. The internal Russian political impact is notable. Drone attacks have strained relations between Moscow and the federal subjects. Citizens outside the capital are frustrated with Moscow's resource extraction and lack of protection, while Kremlin-appointed officials are increasingly forced to defend local interests. Analysts suggest this could push the Kremlin to increase repression or risk further local autonomy, adding a layer of domestic instability to the military pressures Russia already faces. Operationally, the battlefield remains largely positional, with limited advances. Russian infiltration missions and probing attacks continue across multiple axes, including Sumy, Kharkiv, and Kostiantynivka, but consolidated territorial gains are limited. Ukraine continues to interdict Russian supply lines in key nodes in Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Crimea, applying strategic pressure that compounds Moscow's economic and political challenges. Air power developments are poised to shift Ukraine's capabilities. Ukraine is acquiring 20 Gripen E fighters and receiving 16 older Swedish models. Designed for dispersed operations, road-based takeoffs, and rapid turnarounds, these jets, paired with Meteor missiles, will improve survivability and complicate Russian air operations. While not delivering full air superiority, they enhance Ukraine's operational flexibility and ability to pressure Russian forces, supporting glide bomb strikes. Belarus and nuclear infrastructure are key escalation points. Russia and Belarus are expanding military infrastructure and conducting joint exercises, signaling potential escalation while Ukraine monitors developments. At Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the IAEA brokered a temporary local ceasefire to repair the 750 kilovolt power line after months relying on emergency generators. Russian-installed plant management reported Ukrainian drones near a thermal plant powering external lines, though Ukraine offered no comment. These developments highlight the intersection of military operations, nuclear safety, and international diplomacy. Russia continues to experiment to maintain operational reach. The Ministry of Defense is testing a new battle management system, integrating command from platoon to corps, with deployment planned for Center 2026 exercises with CSTO partners. Aerostat prototypes capable of delivering drones and gliding bombs at 10 to 30 kilometers altitude are in testing. Russia is also developing a national AI assistant for domestic platforms, while Apple's removal of the state messenger Max affected over 20 million iOS users. An FSB espionage arrest in Sevastopol demonstrates Moscow's internal security pressures. Strategically, the story is clear. Ukraine is leveraging diplomacy, European integration, and precision strikes to pressure Moscow economically, politically, and operationally. Russia is trying to maintain its war narrative and domestic stability, but stressors across multiple domains, energy, manpower, elite opinion, and technology are building. The battlefield remains positional, but Ukraine's indirect pressures are shaping the strategic landscape, forcing Russia to expend resources, attention, and political capital to maintain its war effort and domestic credibility. Thanks for listening and helping build this community. If you'd like to support the show, leaving a comment or sharing the episode helps more people find it. And if you want to continue the conversation, we publish a daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com with deeper analysis on Russia, China, Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.